So today I want to talk to you about why doctors don't accept adrenal fatigue. Very controversial term. In fact, it's not really even controversial really to doctors. It's black or white. There's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. And let me clarify that. Traditionally trained allopathic doctors do not believe in adrenal fatigue. They don't accept it. And even functional medicine, integrative medicine doctors don't agree with the term. We don't like that term because we know there's so many things that go wrong when it comes down to proper adrenal functioning, or too much stress or continual constant long-term stress on the body that causes a malfunctioning or a dysregulation of the proper availability and action and function of the stress response system. That's a better way to say it. But I'm going to explain to you why doctors do not accept adrenal fatigue. And it comes down to one key thing that you've never heard about, and they've never heard about, or they do know about, but they don't put two and two together because they don't care to. They want to dismiss you and tell you that there's nothing wrong with you or there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. Or they tell you some things that are wrong with you and they don't look at the full picture and they want to just put a medical solution to it. And that's typically going to be a referral or a pharmaceutical solution, which could be okay in the short term. But a lot of people that we see that have exhaustion and fatigue and burnout and have a real dysregulation of their stress response system, it's not a matter of reductionistically taking a pill and fixing it. For that matter, it's not going to be fixed with a supplement as well, reductionistically, because you have to understand what's happening. And one thing that's happening that a lot of doctors do not understand or look at, especially integrative doctors, is a difference between central communication and peripheral communication. So my good friend Dr. Eric Balkavich is writing a book called The Thyroid Debacle, and it's coming out soon, and he really gets into that. Make sure you buy that book and check it out. But he really gets into that in terms of there's a difference between central communication and peripheral communication. And what's ironic is that central communication, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the communicating signalers in the brain and the amygdala, the limbic centers and prefrontal cortex and all over the body, signal a lot quicker, a lot more readily, because that area of the body is much more important to keep working as healthy as possible, no matter what's going on downstairs at the lower levels. And what that means really is that there's a lot more sensitivity to the signals that the body is sending so that it can increase or decrease its action and signal that to the rest of the body. So that's central command stations, and that's typically going to be what we look at with a hypothyroid problem, or what we look at with an adrenal insufficiency, not producing any ACTH, or not being able to produce cortisol in and of itself because there's a regulatory problem. But what we also look at is the peripheral. That's really, really important, because when the body goes into cell danger, meaning it's not able to handle the stressors that it needs to keep up with day in, day out, day in, day out, it shifts its priority system. And that doesn't necessarily happen in terms of the brain level, or at the brain level, that is the priority, and it signals to the downstream mechanics accordingly. And what that will mean is a lot of times when the body's under stress, it will slow down its signaling of TSH to slow down thyroid, and then we go in there and we give too much medication and maybe put more fuel on the flame, which is not a good idea. But the point is that there is a difference between the cellular level or the peripheral level, at the level of the tissue, like the adrenal glands, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the endocrine system, the liver, the detox systems, the musculoskeletal systems. All those systems will shift their priority and say, hey, we need to use this to work, or we need to deactivate this because this is not important at our station, at our work level, at our purpose of functioning. And that has a lot to do with reproductive purposes. A lot of women will go off their cycles when they're under a lot of stress. No libido, That's going to be because you're not prioritizing that with your available funds of energy. But the point is that doctors do not accept adrenal fatigue because of they're looking at just the fact that the adrenals don't completely stop and not produce, but they don't understand the peripheral component where when your cells want the energy in there, it will upregulate cortisol production. And that's a sign of challenging. That's actually a sign of problems, not a sign that everything's working well. Or when it doesn't want it, it will decrease the availability of active hormone. And that enzyme is called 11 beta HSD. And that's a very important enzyme. It's actually as important as the HPA axis itself. So if you play in this game and you're trying to get your health better, and you're studying the adrenals and mitochondrial health and ATP and biohacking or whatever you look at, you got to understand that there's a peripheral level and there's a central level. And as it relates to the adrenals, 11 beta HSD is in charge of that. And you can look at that on a Dutch test. We do that every day. If you're interested, just leave a comment and I'll tell you how to go about doing that. But at the end of the day, we can see with 11 beta HSD, you can take things like licorice root, and that will slow down that 11 beta HSD, getting your cortisol active, ready to go out of the cell. Or if it's you want it's too high, it's already doing that, and you want to lower it, then you can do some stuff like magnolia, zispis root, scutellaria. Those are things that will help make more cortisone, and that can be really helpful for people that don't have proper sleeping skills, if you will. They can't fall asleep, they can't stay asleep, they're too up and ramped, and a lot of the times they'll be looking at, oh, my free fraction is too high, so I got to take phosphatidylserine, and that may or may not be true. You got to think about the free fraction being high is because your body's in cell danger, the same thing that shifted the mechanics of the peripheral 11 beta HSD to say, yes, I want the cortisol, make it active, or no, I don't want the cortisol, make it inactive. Those are going to be the same things that are going to make those other things be heavy, high, or low in their right as well. So think about that. And so lastly, what we typically recommend is getting a proper Dutch test. We really, really like that. Number two, we also look at 11 beta HSD and try to look at, is it free fraction getting more active or is the free fraction getting less active? And don't just look at a saliva test, because the reason the free fraction will be abnormally high is because of that cell danger, like we said, and now your thyroid may be slowing down and your metabolism is slowing down and you're not consuming that free fraction of the hormone and you're deactivating it. And you're saying, well, my free fraction's high. It's not high. It's just not being utilized because your body's shifting it for a purpose. And phosphatidylserine may or may not be helpful. And that's one of those questions where you say, yeah, I've been taking phosphatidylserine and I'm still exhausted, I'm still burnt out, I'm still not fixed. That's because you're not looking at the difference between the periphery and the central. And you should be looking at the central. And that comes down to your pituitary numbers. That comes down to your metabolized cortisol. How much are you producing throughout the entire day? That comes down to other inflammatory markers. That comes down to looking at your glucose levels. It comes down to not saying, Mrs. Jones, take this magic pill, it's going to fix your adrenals. Something that doctors don't believe in, but we're going to fix it anyways because all of these other things that go on that cause breakdown of your stress response problem. That's not the way to look at it. You need to pay the expenses. What's creating the oxidative stress? Is it mold? Is it EMFs? Is it stressful lifestyle? Is it ruinous? Is it alcohol? I mean, you're not going to be a saint and you're not going to practice perfect, health and hygiene every single day of your life, but healing is a noun. I mean, is a verb. It's not a noun. It's something you do continually over and over and over again. So hopefully this video was chock full of information for you and explained to you one reason why doctors don't accept adrenal fatigue is because they're not looking at the difference between the periphery and the central mechanisms and what to do about it, and not just say it doesn't exist or not just say take phosphatidylserine, but actually understand the cell danger reasons, fix those, and see the adrenal exhaustion fall at the wayside. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen, and I look forward to ending your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Take care.